use myself as an example, but I had a habit for years of using passive language. Now, what passive language would be is like, maybe you should call the AT&T technician.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's a very different statement than, I want you to pick up the phone and call the AT&T technician.
Yeah.
Okay? Totally different, right? Because one creates gray area. One creates the opportunity for her to make a judgment call, which wasn't really what I wanted, for her to pick up the phone and see if the phone is working.
Mm-hmm.
We have like 30 phone lines, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why it's so funny to me. Anyway, so I'm kind of like unpacking this and I'm realizing, all right, so I have to communicate my message in a very succinct, impactful, and directive way. I need to say, here is what I expect. My job as a CEO is all about setting expectations. So I need to set the expectation. I need to be there. I need there to be zero gray area. So I don't want to use language that's passive, and I also don't want to use language that's suggestive. So suggestive might look like this. I think probably. When people say probably or sort of or kind of, that's
Mm-hmm.
suggestive.
Right.
All right. Maybe, I don't know, that's really passive. Or like, is there any way? That's a passive. Like, is there any way you could call the technician? That's passive, right?
Yes.
Where suggestive is, I think you should do X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
Directive is, I expect you to call the technician today, please. Let me know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very different, I am setting people up to be a level 5 out of 10 or a level 4. I am training them to be that way because of how I'm communicating with them in the day-to-day.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that me as the leader, as a CEO, as the visionary can create a team of 10s around me is to train them to be 10s.
Mm-hmm.
Train them to be 10s by paying attention to and being deliberate about my own language to them.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question. So you're a powerful woman and an effective leader. Do you worry about the words you use and coming across? I know there's like this. There's definitely an unfair comparison of there's a strong man. He can say, men can get away with a lot more than women can, because the women says some more direct words sometimes are coming across as a bitch, whereas the same words for a guy would be like, ooh, what a powerful leader. Like, I am very aware of that, and I witness that every single day at the tech company I work for. But is that something that you worry about in your own company and how you're communicating with your employees, or are you trying to just be the most effective you can regardless of how it's coming across in that moment?
Okay, that's a great question, and I think that you've really said something super important as far as how do we view this masculine energy versus this feminine energy and how it's used. Because when a feminine person or a female comes across in this like masculine energy way, it can be a turnoff.
Mm-hmm.
It can, especially to men, it can be, because it kind of goes against our natural instincts, which is why it feels all wonky. It is wonky, and that's okay, because I think that just like being aware that, all right, it feels off is the first step. Mm-hmm. And to say, how do we get around that? So that's where I think the passive language develops in women, because they want to tone down their energy, or at least this was true for me. So I would say in my 20s, I wasn't worried about this at all. So in my 20s, I was like all about it. I mean, unstoppable. I was Shark Tank to the T.
Right.
And then, I had children. It changes my hormonal makeup. I'm dealing with, as I'm in my 30s, I'm going through a divorce. That was a really hard time in my life. So I think that I became a lot more compassionate and a lot more empathetic. And then I became a lot more aware of how my behavior impacted other people. Mm-hmm. And I did not want to impact other people in a negative way. And I think that I started to develop some passive and suggestive speech patterns, or how I communicated became more passive, like passive aggressive. I'll even say, if you say, mm-hmm. Like when people say something like definitely, maybe, how did that become a phrase?
I'm not sure.
It's so confusing. Yeah. So so when I was really working this out and becoming aware of how my energy was affecting other people, I became more passive, but then that created a whole nother set of problems. So now that, and I'm in my 40s now, one of the things that I definitely have down is like owning my power. Like I am no longer afraid to say that I am an off the charts, intelligent, smart, powerful woman with killer business instincts.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be formulating solutions to things while I'm still being told the story. And I just recently did that Gallup's Strengths Finder.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my top 5 was strategic. And so I totally see that in myself because I'm just a problem solver. I'm just a natural problem solver. But the more confidence that I gain in my problem solving abilities, the more confidence I can have in my own decisions, the more I sound powerful and less bitchy. That's what I think. Either that or I just don't care anymore.
Either way, it's working, and so that's a good way to go. So I'm curious as a sidebar, because you mentioned strength finders. Do you make your employees, do you have your employees take strength finders or one of the self-assessment areas to find out what they're best at?
When they're not too busy trying to get a hold of the AT&T technician,
right,
or testing the phone lines, some I do, some I don't. So there's different levels of employees, and a lot of times I'll do my best to size people up in the beginning. And the first thing I do is I might decide, is this person a thinker or a doer?
Mm-hmm.
And and they're both equally vital to a business because we need our thinkers and we need our doers. Mm-hmm. Right? So I kind of start, and I'll have them take personality tests if they want to, and they're very, very useful. We used to actually do it as part of the hiring process, and we've moved towards something a little different now. We have a whole hiring guide. It's very scientific. But what I find is when you can identify people's strengths and then provide them with work to do in that their core area of strengths, obviously you're going to get the greater outcomes. Mm-hmm. But even though those are the strengths, it still doesn't mean that it's super pronounced in that person's life right away.
Right.
Like they need still time to develop and train and grow into those strengths. And so, yeah, I love developing people's strengths.
Mm-hmm. Oh, excellent. So I'm wishy-washy, I guess the best way, or not sold on all of the self-assessments. So I appreciate them because I feel like they do highlight, again, like you mentioned, certain tendencies that we each have. I've just met so many people, and maybe it's more in the corporate world, who just identify to a T whatever their score is. They're like, nope, I'm an ENTJ. This is how I think. This is how I react. And they self-identify so much so that they are use it as a crutch, where they're like, well, this is how I think because that's what my self-assessment says. And so I was just kind of curious on.
Interesting.
On how that
Yeah. I definitely have talked to some, I've talked to some corporate trainers that rely very, very heavily on that. And they even use it to de-escalate interpersonal situations within the corporate environment, like people getting in arguments and stuff. And mm-hmm. I was really amazed by this one person who's able to look at both of the people's personality profiles mm-hmm. and then she can explain to them, break it down. This is why you guys got in this argument. And here's how you could look at this differently. And she's really an expert. I am not any kind of level of expert on that stuff, but I definitely think that knowing it is at least good. It can be a helpful tool, but I agree with you that it certainly should not be relied upon like it's your blood type.
Yes, exactly. So in in the other areas you do of communication, how else are you working to, I guess, enhance the confidence in your employees, as well as, help them be as focused in your business as you are?
Okay, so I feel like that because of what we do as a company, mm-hmm. which is debt collections, And then we also do a lot of training and development on communications. And the way that I developed a communication strategy that we worked with is through the laboratory of all of the probably million phone calls that we've done in debt collections, which is all about, trying to find that way to create a connection with somebody. My whole brand is built on that. I want people to feel good about paying their debt instead of swimming in that psychological burden of shame and unworthiness over having the debt.
Right.
And so what happens is anyone who works for my company or for me, they learn this communication strategy inside, outside, backwards, and forwards to the point where it doesn't just change how they work, it changes their entire life. And I say that because it's literally true. I mean, I've just got miracle story after miracle story of the transformative power that understanding this, to be able to communicate in this way, what it does for you. And so what I've noticed is it's just through the training. It's not necessarily through anything I'm doing, but through our company culture of here's how we do things. And we all learn these skills and become this way that everything just, the people who want to grow. Then we have people who are doers and they just, they want to do whatever their job is and they're happy with that place, and that's okay too. Just everyone, it's just really very magical to watch it all happen.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So I'm curious, as you've grown in your company, how have I guess, who do you look for as role models and leaders and examples of who you want to become as a leader or business owner or any of that?
Right now, there's two people that I absolutely love, and these two people are polar opposites of each other. So Brene Brown, who, because Brene Brown is bringing to light such important, we were talking in the pre-call chat about there being a moral and psychological crisis. And Brene has this ability to bring these issues to the surface and put it under a microscope, figure out what's going on, and then know how to create change. And when she talks about things like love and belonging, I could tell you that someone, I was at this business event in San Diego, and the woman and I don't remember her name, her first name's Ellen, but she created the company called Orange Theory. And Orange Theory is apparently all the rage. Have you heard of it?
I have, yeah. It's I've never been, but I see it all over the place. Yeah,
we don't have any here, but I guess they're everywhere outside of Champaign. Right. We don't even have a Chick-fil-A here.
Oh, really?
We got nothing. Yeah, it's a small town. But anyway, so I'm listening to her give this talk, and I've never heard of Orange Theory before, but I'm checking it out. It all sounds good. And then 2 weeks later, I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I'm at this event, and this woman was talking about Orange Theory, and she goes, I just want to know what the secret sauce is. And I was like, what, with Orange Theory? And as soon as she said that, and again, this is my strategic mind going, as soon as she finished the sentence, I knew what the secret sauce was. So the secret sauce is that Orange Theory has become overnight sensation because we have a basic human need for connection. And we are filling that need a lot of times right now through social media. That's why we want to get 50 likes on our picture, or hearts, or shares, or engagement, or whatever, comments. That's all feedback that makes us in our brain feel a sense of connection, love, and belonging, which is what Brene Brown is talking about. So the secret sauce to Orange Theory is that you go through this, I'm going to call it circuit training. It's not exactly that, but it's a set of exercises that you do when you go through her system, and you earn these splat points. And then the splat points, I think you get when your target heart rate hits a 12-minute something. But anyway, then your splat points appear on the screen, and you get ranked, and then people are sharing their splat points.